Okay, so let's see this in action. I'm going to take a look here at example 3. It also appears in the lesson itself, just above or just below this video. This is a typical kind of question. So, example 3 says the graph below shows an exponential function f of x. Find a formula for f of x. And just in reading this thing, the fact that it says it shows an exponential function, we know that that function is going to have this form. Because this is what exponential functions are. It's some number times some number to the x. And our goal is going to be to find that c and the b, if you will. So we know that this function, f of x, is equal to c times b to the power x. Now, we know something else, which is that looking at the graph, this thing crosses the y-axis at y equal 2. So it has an intercept, the y-intercept, 0, 2. And according to the rule that we just saw, that y-intercept, the y-coordinate of it, is the same as the number that's in the front, which means that this number 2 must be our c. So now we know that f of x is equal to 2 times b to the x. And I guess the idea that I'm using here, maybe just to make a note of it, is that this number equals c. c equals 2. That's where we came up with that number in the front. Cool. So we now have an updated formula, f of x equal 2 times b to the x, and it's just a matter of figuring out what is this base b. Okay, so here's how we do that. We have one other point on this function. It's the point, not here, but here. I mean, you can already tell that the base is going to be, you should think whether the base is going to be greater than 1 or between 0 and 1. And that's something we can tell by looking at the shape of this graph. Since it goes up to the right, we know that the base must be greater than 1. So that's just a conclusion we've gotten so far. It doesn't tell us what the base is, but it's something. We do also know that for this function, when we at this point, 1, 10 is a point on the function. So when we plug in 1 for x, we should get 10 for f of x. So f of 1 equals 10. And all I'm going to do is plug this in by replacing f of x with 10 and by replacing x with 1. So we're going to plug in the point 1, 10. We get 10 is equal to 2 times b to the 1. Now, b to the power 1 is just equal to b. And the 2 times in front, we can get rid of that by dividing by 2 on both sides. So we get 5 is equal to b. Now this tells us what b is equal to. We can put b back into our formula here, and we'll now have a complete formula for this function. This function is f of x equal 2 times 5 to the x. So that's how we can go from the graph to a formula for the function, knowing that it's an exponential function.